Hello, nā mai, haere mai. Welcome to the last ordinary meeting for this Ranierium. We have a couple of apologies this morning. John Pemberton and Paul Evans. Somebody like to move by Ed, seconded by Morris. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Move to item 3, declarations of interest. I haven't been made aware of any this morning. 4 is public forums, petitions, deputations. Also not aware of any this morning. So move to item 5, which is confirmation of minutes. That is on page 6. There are no alterations or changes. Would somebody like to move those minutes be accepted as a true and correct record? Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Alistair. All in favour will say aye. Right, we'll move to adoption of committee resolutions. 6.1 is the Regional Transport Committee meeting of the 5th. Jeremy, would you like to comment on the meeting?
Everything's been read. I'll have them move it unless there's any questions in regards to the committee.
Happy to second that.
Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Phil. If there are no questions, I will put the resolution. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Right, we'll move to 6.2, Chief Executive Review Committee of the 18th of September. I'll actually have to move that from the chair. If we second this forward. Second it. Any discussion? I'll put the resolution. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, 6.3 is Risk and Assurance Committee meeting of the 24th of September. Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Peter. Any discussion? Put the motion. All in favour will say aye. Aye. And last but not least, 6.4 Strategy and Policy meeting of the 25th of September. Linda, would you like to comment on your meeting?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Just a couple of things. We wanted to highlight 9.5, the spatial planning item, and recognise that Council we're encouraging to begin the process of discussions. So that we can, so that there will be some kind of established process and possible options for us and our territorial authority colleagues going forward, because the spatial planning is coming at us. So I'm very pleased that Council have had some foresight in that space. And 9.8 was the local government reorganisation paper, and we added a few suggestions for groups that could be in stakeholder groups that could be included, and you can see the resolutions there very clearly state where we're at in the process. So thank you, that's me. I'll move those resolutions. Thanks.
Moved by Lyndall, seconded by Jeremy. Any questions or comments? Peter, have you got a question?
Yeah, and comment. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The two subjects that you brought up, I see are quite related to each other. I see the spatial planning, just if you'd like to make a comment, Lyndall, spatial planning is the gravity that will bring us all together as a region. I'm talking councils, territorial authorities, and so forth. That's probably will provide that, for want of a better word, the gravity that brings us together into one place.
Yeah, and if I can, Chairman, the structure and the framework for things that can be done together and things that need to be perhaps done separately. So they're certainly not unrelated items, as you say, and the local government reorganisation committee will, I'm sure, be thinking about that stuff in the back of the heads as well. So yes, good point. Thank you.
Good work. Moved and seconded. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, item 7 is notification of extraordinary items of urgent business. Do we have any?
Yes, you do. You have a supplementary report today to the adoption of committee resolutions. There's both a public session and a public excluded session to be added to the agenda.
To be added. somebody like to move that those items be added? Moved by Peter, seconded by Lyndall. In favour will say aye.
Yeah.
So we'll deal with that
Later in the.
later, okay. So item 8 is questions, 8.1. We have a question from Councillor Morrison. Would you like to comment on the question? It's written down there, but yeah.
Just to know that there were some questions that were initially put to the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting, and they were sort of kind of bounced to this forum. So that was, and I would note that the response there partially responds, but signals that there is more to come.
So is there a further response from staff, or is it all there? Yeah. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So as Councillor Morrison's noted, it's an answer to the question, but there is much more to come. There will need to be further work done with the future council, catchment management and how it sits, how we monitor it, what the implementation of it looks like, and also how it aligns sideways, nests in beautifully with a range of other terms like special planning. So there is lots more to do. The answer to the questions was very focused on what we know to be true right now as opposed to predetermining what might need to be done. So I'm happy to answer any more questions, and hopefully Sam is online, but the second question there around the plans that have currently been undertaken primarily in the Waikawa and Waihopai, and obviously sitting within Sam's division now in that land sustainability function.
Any further questions for Lucy? This is, comprehensive work. We've had the funding for Slow the Flow. This is a comprehensive approach to our catchments. So a lot more to come, and I'll watch from the sidelines. So good luck with that. Okay, we'll move to item 9, which is Chairman and Councillors' reports. There is a list of the meetings that I have attended since the last meeting. Happy to answer any questions, should there be any. Not seeing any. Are there any other councillor reports? Morris.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I attended a migrant eel mitigation program for the Waiau catchment on Thursday, the 2nd of October by Zoom. This is a program required by consents granted to Meridian to operate the Manapuri power scheme. It has been going for 12 years and has accumulated a large amount of data about the migration of elvers upstream and adults downstream. Data such as age and size of both elvers and adults now provides an important data set about eels, tuna arriving at the Manapuri Lake Control Structure and being caught before leaving Lake Manapuri so that they don't go through the power station. The issues discussed at this meeting included the location of elver transfer sites and perch bycatch and the timing of catch efforts. This report will be given to Environment South to review, and I think it would be good for the council to maybe have a workshop on this and other matters relating to the Manapuri power scheme. The Waiau Working Party is having a meeting in November to consider the program of work Meridian undertakes to mitigate adverse effects on the Waiau more generally, and will provide a letter to Environment South in due course.
Thank you for that, Morris. Any questions for Morris on that report? Any further verbal reports this morning? If not, we will move to item 10 reports. And the first up is 10.1 valedictory speeches, and I'll hand over to Deputy Chair Jeremy to run this.
And I'll just quickly, the name is just going to lead us into this.
Kia ora koutou. As mentioned previously, this is the last meeting with Radium, and we are aware that we have 3 councillors who have not lodged an application to stand again, so won't be returning to council. This is an opportunity to recognise the service that those councillors have provided to us and to give them an opportunity to make a valedictory speech. And I know that the colleagues also wish to say something, so handing over to the Deputy Chair to
All good, thank you, Amy. Just to get a wee bit of structure and play and make sure people don't talk too long and give them their wisdom and for the future. We'll just go through and we'll present. There'll be a presentation each after your speech. So just in regards, and I hope we'll go Robert, Neville, then Nicol. It's okay. So without holding anybody up anymore, would you like to?
Thank you, Jeremy, and I guess you chose that order of events because I'm the youngest. Thank you, everybody, and Nicol, councillors, staff, and others, sons in particular. I thought to start my valedictory by assuring you that it was going to be short and pithy, but then I thought, no, I can't take that because Lyndall will want to use that line when she comes time to do hers. It's supposed to be a joke. Actually, I wanted to say thank you to you, Nicol, because you, over the time that I've been here on council, when you've been chair, you provided me with an opportunity to speak, and without cutting me off and without, so I really appreciate that. Actually, I've got some other things to say about you later on. One of those was going to be the best thing about Nicol Horrell is anyhow. I don't know if that would be. So I wanted to talk about two people only. I mean, there's a lot of things happen over a time as a councillor, and we meet a lot of really interesting people, particularly the councillors, but I just chose two, one of whom is a councillor or was a councillor, and the other who is not a councillor at all. And the person I've settled upon to mention is Rolly Curry, and that may be a surprise, but Rolly was a very good friend of mine. I always used to sit in that chair, and Rolly would sit pretty much where Jeremy is now, and Rolly was my silent guide, really, my behaviour manager. What Rolly taught me, he taught me without anybody else seeing what he was doing. Back in the day, we didn't have this arrangement of tables here. We had an older style which had panelling around the base, and so you couldn't actually see councillors' legs. And what Rolly used to do when I started launching into some long and convoluted and usually upsetting dialogue is that when he felt I had gone far enough and said enough, he'd kick me under the table and quite hard. And Rolly wore quite sturdy boots. Over time, I learned to pull back and not say too much and perhaps not repeat myself. So I'm very grateful to Rolly for that. Rolly, others may not know this either, Rolly was an expert in writing limericks. And another thing we all used to have too on our tables was big blotter pads. We don't have those now because we've got these. It's a shame really, because those blotter pads were fun because we could pass messages back and forth to each other without anybody seeing. Now we do it through Messenger. But Rolly used to write limericks about particular councillors, particularly councillors who were showing their true colours during a meeting, but we couldn't speak about it. So he'd write a little limerick here and he'd nudge his blotter pad across to me and I'd read that. Nicol, yours were funny. I pray to God that Grant Hubbard never gets to see his. So that was Rolly. He did me a great deal of good. The other person I wanted to talk about, I don't know her name. She's an elderly woman who lives in Gore, I presume, because I met her very briefly at a time where councillors and staff went to Gore to look at stock banks and various things. And the program had us going to the Gore RSA for lunch. And we all pulled up outside the RSA building and all the councillors got out and walked up the ramp into the into the RSA for lunch that was prepared. I got distracted by someone in the street. I was chatting, so I was last to go in. I was quite a little bit late. And as I was going up the ramp toward the door, there was an elderly woman coming down the ramp. She was walking with a walking frame or a Zimmer frame or whatever you might call it. Her head was down until I got pretty much level with her, at which point she looked up and said to me very sternly, "Tidy yourself up," which I thought probably the wisest thing anyone's ever said to me. I took no notice at all, but there you go. Yeah, good one. I appreciate her sentiments. Nō reira, e hara haui te takita mōhio te kōrero Māori. Ha ha ha. Engari, e rua ngā mea. Kia tūpato e ho mā, ko tēnei te rā, ko tēnei te wā o te pākanga nui. Kia hiwara, kia hiwara, kia hiwara. Ā, mā te wā, kia ora mō ngā ika katoa. That's it from me, thank you.
Speaking of short and pithy,
Yes.
here I am. I draw the short straw. Robert, not an easy one for us to sum up, actually. You've been the counsellor most likely to turn up with a piece of an orchard, a good book, a challenging idea, and a question that made everyone stop mid-sentence and think. You've asked us to look at the world differently, sometimes through the eyes of a bird, sometimes a tree, and occasionally, I think, an earthworm. You've reminded us that policy can have roots, that ideas can compost and grow again, and that humour is an essential part of good governance. Your beard-stroking pauses have become infamous, a sure sign that something thoughtful and possibly mischievous was about to follow. And your steady stream of emails and shared readings kept our minds active and our inboxes full.
Everybody loved those.
I know. I thought I'd get them first. On a personal note, I want to thank you for your support, your patience, and the way you've always encouraged me to find my own voice, even though I'm about to lose it today. I've appreciated the way you listen, really listen, before responding, and the calmness and the diverse perspective you bring even when the debate gets heated. You've reminded us that manaakitanga and kaitiakitanga aren't just words, excuse me, they're ways of being. So I thank you, Robert, for your curiosity, kindness, and the spark you've brought to this place. May your next forest of people, plants, and ideas continue to grow wild and well. Kia ora te maraino.
Thank you.
Right, thank you for that, Robert. Plenty to say too, in regards to what you contributed. It was good. Very good. Neville, would you like?
When Robert set the tone, we have to stand.
Yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
Eric will accuse me of reading my speech. So I want to thank Southlanders first for, excuse me, for trusting me to represent them for the last 18 years. Enjoyed their confidence. My background and motivation was that my former life, I was responsible on a regional basis for Southland, for the policing, and I was also responsible for Southland for delivery of health services. So going for a place on a regional council was an obvious step for me. I think I'd feel constrained if I was looking at a city council or the local government. But I'd like to acknowledge the colleagues and staff, fellow councillors for putting up with me. You've probably had enough now. And for your friendship, even when we've disagreed. I've managed to make a contribution to emergency management because I've been involved with that for a generation even. I would have to hand back the bag though. This is the emergency management go bag for whoever's going to be declaring emergencies. So I'll hand that in on the way out. It's got all the paper you need. So I've managed to draw my own education and experience with that to go through 3 emergencies, plus the early ones, 79 and 84 when I was involved with those. Regulatory committee, well, again, my past training and experience has let me make a contribution there. And I think you've got a really good staff commitment in that regulatory and consents, even though they're the ones that come in for the most criticism. They're the ones that actually deliver our services. I like about a regional council that we elect our own chair. So we can decide that it's not elected by an outside audience, which I think is really important for the smooth functioning of a council. I do want to make a couple of policy things. A call for governance reform, if you like. Southland doesn't need 4 councils. And I've banged on about that quite often. 3 mayors and a chair for 100,000 people. At a time when the ratepayers are saying we're spending too much money, you know, the rates are going up all the time. That's all infrastructure that needs to be paid for. My advice for incoming and returning councillors is you represent everybody in Southland, not just the people who voted for you. You also represent the people who didn't vote for you, and the ones that don't vote at all. You're responsible for all of those. So I'll miss the interactions, the learning, the shared purpose, and my best before date is there.
And it's my privilege to, on your behalf, respond and say thank you to Neville Cook. Perhaps we should just note, while we're doing the valedictories here, that we're saying goodbye to 51 years of contribution collectively between the 3 people, and what an outstanding longevity and opportunity they've had to be a significant part of this council. So we should recognise that for all of 51 years. Neville has been here for 18, and in our board papers there's a comprehensive list of the various things that he's been involved in over that time. Each of us, when we come to stand on a position like this, are something of a package, and we represent not only ourselves but our involvement in the community, and that's where I think Neville has brought a wealth of experience within the community. He's mentioned his policing, Provincial Southland Commissioner of Police, important role on the Southland Health Board. He's also been a District Governor of Rotary. He's had business involvement in the city with the cinema. He's got a holiday place at Te Anau. He's farmed at Tussock Creek. What a comprehensive list of things that he's done. I've known Neville for about 30 years. He was the Commissioner of Police when I first went to see him about a policing matter. And we ended up talking about rocks and geology, which was another interest that he had. So what a comprehensive contribution he's brought from the wider community, and his contribution here to a variety of things. Each of us leaves a legacy. The legacy might be when we leave that we haven't done much or we've done badly. I think Neville's legacy is he's represented the community, he's been wise, he's been here for 18 years, and we say thank you.
Neville, I should have said I've known you for much longer.
You didn't say we were cousins.
We were keeping that under wraps.
Man hug. Okay.
Right.
Right, Nickel.
While everybody else is standing up, I might need to lecture them so I can read the voice more notes. put my hand up, or put my hand in the ring for Environment Southland's Western constituency in 2007, I never imagined it would be an 18-year journey. Looking back on my involvement over a significant portion of my life, I believe we've made some significant progress in many areas, including water quality. Having halted the decline in many of our mainstream testing sites, which are sitting in that stable to likely to improving band. Undeniably, we've still got a long way to go to get close to the aspirational water quality targets most people have. But in most cases, I believe we are heading in the right direction. I've seen a huge change in people's attitudes over the past 15 years in particular, from questioning whether we had a water quality issue in Southland to what do we have to do. This is particularly evident with the establishment of so many catchment groups across the province, 36 at last count and growing. This sort of ground up local communities taking control of their own destiny is really powerful and will result in the cumulative effects of thousands of initiatives that will make a real difference over time. While the catchment group concept is now being enthusiastically replicated around the country, remember, it started in Southland. And I think Environment Southland can take some credit for supporting the establishment of and working collaboratively with these groups. During my time as chairman, we worked closely with the government of the day, offering common sense solutions to complex problems, gaining respect and a higher profile than one would expect from the second smallest regional council in the country on a population basis. The intensive winter grazing group was a great example of how quickly the farming industry moved to better practice when all the parties worked together to provide clear, consistent messaging. In the time I've been here, I've been involved in the regional policy statement, which was quite a marathon, and Morris was on that with me. And I still believe that was a pretty good basis. We listened and reacted appropriately at the time. But I guess, it is a turning point on the road, and I really want to thank the staff that supported me over the years. I don't know how long Jan's been in this building, but when she goes away, we're lost. But comms, the senior management, Rob, all those people we've interacted over the time. We've got, a lot of people come into this building every morning. They don't get the publicity, and they're here to do a job and to support governments and staff to do the things that we're tasked with. And that's been a real privilege. And I believe, always believed in the strength of the team, and I think a strong team work collaboratively together can actually move mountains. And I believe, with a whole lot of issues, we have moved small mountains over the time. The water and land plan, that took far too long and too much expense to go through a process, but actually this is Southland's plan, apart from one or two things that people didn't like, people had the chance to contribute. And on the whole, when the government were going to change things, and I sort of ignored and said, let's use our own plan. And a lot of people in the room thought, well, yeah, we've been part of this. This is our plan, and they were probably actually quite supportive of it. Going back to issues early in my first chairmanship, we had the aluminium gloss issue with Mataura, and two around the council was probably brought in with the new and experienced chair that Environment Southland could pay for the lot. And that upset my sense of fairness and natural justice. So we pushed back, but we actually came up with a model where everybody contributed it, and we actually solved the problem. And it was a leadership issue. And over the years, the support from people around the table has been fantastic. Looking back, I don't think anybody else has actually served 3 terms as chair in Southland. So I'm not sure whether I'm a masochist or a slow learner, but we've had quite a time together. The Waituna Tuna Trust, it was probably one of the more successful of the freshwater initiatives, and dealing with complex issues and complex groups, but I'm actually quite proud of the progress we've made. It's like a lot of things, you start a process, but it'll take a generation or two to actually totally achieve. But again, we were out of starting blocks and moving. The Stead Street pump station, I guess it was one of those eating dead rat moments where we found that we had to install fish-friendly pumps and costs had just gone through the roof. But I believe we made the right decision for the future of the city, and we did gain respect from the government funding agencies, Kānawa, for our resolve and our ability to get on and do stuff. We've been a privilege to chair the Mayoral Forum in this last term, and I think, you know, that the power of the Mayoral Forum is to speak unitedly for Southland. We know that change to local government is coming, but our real strength is to be able to speak with one voice for the community. Neville's mentioned emergency management. I think it needs a bit of work at the moment, but we do have a very good structure where everybody has skin in the game, something to watch going forward. We know we will have our emergency at some stage. It's not a matter of if, it's when. Having a coordinated centre with dedicated staff is essential, in my view, and that needs to be followed up by the next council. You know, again, it's a CCO, a bit like Great South, and probably also that entity is the envy of many other places of the country. I think, yeah, I don't need to say too much more, but look, there's a bit of confusion out there at the moment, a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people think there's going to be no regulation. There will always be a regulator, and no matter whether the RMA lands, there's always going to be guidelines. There will be changes, and most people would welcome that, but somebody's actually got to do that job. And we've got education, but eventually there will be a regulator, and I would hate to see it be happening out of Wellington. So that's something for everybody to watch going forward. Robert and Neville also retiring. So I've enjoyed our interactions over the years, Robert, and Neville. Your contribution to emergency management in particular has been stellar over such a long time. He also chaired the AF8 committee, so your contribution has not gone unnoticed. So thank you, everyone, and I'll be able to open the paper and say, what on earth are they thinking in the future? But good luck for the future. I think a lot of people say, what does the regional council do? And actually, you are the guardians of the things in Southland that most people value. So never forget that. The ability to recreate, to have outstanding landscapes, it's all future focused. And there will be people taking over these jobs and whatever they call the entity, but good luck. It's been a great journey, and I'm looking forward to having a slightly quieter life and being able to spend a bit more time with my family and my wife, who has been so supportive over the years. Couldn't have done it without her. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicol. Just reflecting on this, and I've just been thinking as Nicol's been speaking, and I try to reflect back to the last 9 years and when I first talked or met Nicol. It was over the phone. I gave him a ring 9 years ago when I was standing for elections, and actually just come to mind, I think it was the first piece of misinformation I got when I started being involved in the council and how we're dealing with public. When Nicol's, I sort of asked him, I said, how much does it involve, you know? And he said, oh, 1, maybe 2 days a week. And I trusted him from then on, and unfortunately that backfired seriously. So I realised the misinformation is not just outside.
That was a backbencher. You hand up for other jobs.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's that, but that's part of the job, which you've done. When you come around this table, you get into it, and the community's expecting you to work hard. So, and definitely, Nicol, you've performed outstandingly. Yeah, thank you for your 18 years. I was reflecting on prison sentences, and there's some pretty harsh ones that do 18 years. But one thing I want to probably take away from Nicol, the importance of behind every man is a great woman. Most of the time. No, the same. This day and world, I can't say that all the time. Oh, no, I'm digging myself a hole here. But I respect.
Partner of significance.
Yeah, partners. Thank you. And I know in this job that the sacrifice sometimes the family takes. You know, I especially in the last 3 years, I've worked with Nicol as deputy, and late phone calls, and often the phone calls in this job, they're not positive ones. They're not out saying you're doing a wonderful job. It's usually people like telling you the problems. Nicol was very, in his personality or the way he works, very open, wanting to talk with everyone. And I know there'll be a few late phone calls, early phone calls. And I know having support of family is hugely important in this job. And we really need to recognise that. I know he's number one behind and family. I was trying to find some words, and I love using, let's go to AI and Google. Integrity is probably my word that I can probably describe Nicol, and I'll read from this is what Google tells you about this. It's about the quality of being honest, trustworthy, morally upright, characterised by an uncompromising adherence to strong ethical and moral principles and values, even when no one is looking. And I thought, well, that sums up Nicol pretty well. He stands by what he believes in, and I thought that I'm pretty happy with that description. One thing, you are very inclusive, and Robert brought it up in regards that you managed to hold the reins for 9 years around here. Probably thrown in the deep end a wee bit at the beginning, a bit of a change around the. That's what democracy does. And I remember Robert has said that to me a couple of times, that he felt everybody was important, everybody had their views, and everybody respected and listened and had the ability to say what they think. And that's something we can all learn from, and that spoke a lot in your leadership around here. Your one thing I have seen personally with all the groups in the community, the council, iwi partners, and central government, the mana you have in those organisations, or just wherever you are, is great. It's just you have a lot of respect out there, and yeah, I can't say too much more than that. It's just you are a well-respected man by the way you've worked with those groups. I'm just quickly looking at my notes. I'm a bit like your notes, Nicol. I always think you're working, just scribbling things down. Look, that probably sums a fair bit of it up. But one thing I know, you'll enjoy time away from here. You'll be able to do those 18 years of work you haven't done on your farm. And because I know that I understand that totally. And look, we just really appreciate what you've done. And I was going to add, I said it'll be a great feeling on Saturday, maybe when you're driving down that highway and you see that car you want to pass, Big Brother's not watching you. So you got a free road now. I have to admit that I'll probably take blame for, I'll tell you a wee story here. Nicol and I, we went to Waikaka, a meeting at Waikaka Hall. I said, look, I'll jump in your car. I said, I'll take you for a bit of a tour around the neighbourhood. Knowing full well that I said, I know that if I go over 100, it'll ping back to this thing. So I was joking all the way, but I'll have to take credit. It might have been a couple of those just along the Waikaka Strait. Anyway, so I won't take all the blame. But she's a free road now. You can do whatever you want after on Saturday, Nicol. So look, thanks again from me personally and the rest of the council here. I've learned a lot, and we've all learned a lot. We've done a good job, and we wish you well. And Anne, plenty of trips to Australia and get all that work done on the farm and the house. So wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Now, yeah, you're more than welcome to anybody else to open up to the rest of the council.
Jim, if I could just say so, just to cover off a couple of things very briefly. Robert, thanks very much. You've had the eloquence when you speak. It's been really, you've hit the mark. And some of the things over the years you've come up with, it's like I thought, I need to do that. And that is so important and within the group. So I really appreciate that, Robert, and the thoughts we've had and the support you've given. Neville, you keep us on track. Whenever we veer off, you bring us back to the hard lines or the bottom lines. And your regulatory knowledge is very, very important. I really appreciate that. And Nico, I know you're looking through all your presents here now.
Return of the sheep, yes.
I'd just like to make a comment of within this chamber and how you've operated. I call it the use of those soft skills. You've kept us a very consensus orientated council. So I know when I drive in from home, I'm coming to a meeting with innovation will pass across the table and we're free thinking and free speaking. I don't take that for granted. We could have a really constricted council operation where we points of order here and you can't speak, you've already had your say, but I really appreciate that you kept that open. So thanks very much. And thanks very much for your service.
Thank you.
Couple of recommendations on the
Receive the report, could I move it and allow?
yeah, it's retrospective, but yeah, I'll move it.
Move it.
I'll second.
Lyndall, second, all in favour, say aye. Aye. It's carried. All right. Thank you. I'll hand back over to you.
Okay, we will move to 10.2, Chief Executive's report. Rob, would you like to comment on your
Thank you, Chair. I'll just pick out a few highlights. And you might have some questions at the end, but a key highlight and the most recent one is the Community Awards event last Friday night held at the Escott. This was a fantastic night, a great example of a cross-organisational team effort. From the nomination process, we gathered in the community to the coordinating the judging activities and the judging and the hosting of the event itself. It was a very successful event and it had a fantastic atmosphere and some inspirational finalists. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of stories. Hopefully, we haven't seen the last of those finalists. They were certainly inspirational and so great to watch. And it's certainly a highlight of the year. And it was great to see so many stakeholders there. A couple of mayors, we had a minister, and Penny Simmons was there, so great to see who's there. So excellent, it was good to see. So moving on to the election coming up this weekend, you may be aware of that. There's a significant focus across the organisation on preparing for the new council and the new triennium. And just a wee reminder, if you haven't voted, you've got a couple of days, 3 days left to get your vote in. You're moving to the annual compliance monitoring report. Now, this is in the agenda. It records the great work that our consent holders, our businesses are doing in the region. And one of the highlights, and this is a number of highlights, is that we saw half the infringement notices issued from the previous year. So we went from, so it dropped to 20, and we had over, I think, 40 last year. And we've had a particularly wet spring, and this presented significant challenges to our farming community. So it's a good news story. You know, so we're seeing a lift, an ongoing lift in performance. Still work to do. It's always going to be a challenging time, but I think it's a really positive point, and also a great report, and reflects the great team we've got in quite a difficult space in that regulatory compliance space. So well done to the team sitting back there. And there's obviously there's a separate item on the agenda today. We'll talk about it in a bit more detail. So Council's recent submission on the Local Government System Improvement Amendment Bill has attracted the attention of the Select Committee, and we've been invited to present to the committee this afternoon just after 1. So well done for the team for getting that to their attention, and so Chairman Harold and Hayley will be appearing on the ES's behalf. I'm looking forward So hearing some reports about that, I'm sure it'll go well. In terms of our science update, it's a real point to note is that this winter we only had one PM10 sentence in Invercargill airshed. And for comparison, in 2024 we had 5 exceedances. So that's a good news story. And again, it's another example of some behaviour change. Increasingly, we've got cleaner forms of heating, and that hasn't come easy to Southland and Invercargill, but it is happening. So it's a good news story. It's not in the just another one which isn't in my report, but it's worth being aware that we've also had a very wet September, which will be no surprise to viewers. So rainfall across the region was on average 181% of the long-term September normal, and with northwest and south receiving 275%. So we've had some rain. So this has translated into very high river flows and high lake levels. So Earth Sciences New Zealand seasonal outlook suggests October may be stormy, and it certainly has been to date, and with increased risk, increased chance of rainfall. But the good news is we're moving towards a more settled period through to December. So I'm sure we're all looking forward to that. In terms of some of the operational activity, the flood bank inspection has been completed, and work continues during the already stage 1 work. We also continue work on the code of practice and flood management bylaw reviews to support best practice, river works and land drainage, alongside our strategic work program on flood management and on ES land and the Waituna. Moving into biosecurity, a marine biosecurity surveillance trip last month focused on southern Rakura, and there were no new incursions of marine pests or undaria incursions. So that's good news. It's always a source of concern. We have an intensive pest plant and pest animal program coming up over the coming months, which we'll hear more about in the coming months. The CDM group is now out for public consultation through until the 10th of November. And so finally, our recruitment follows the organisational redesign process continues with 37 positions filled since May the 14th through internal appointments. There are currently 24 vacancies that we're recruiting. So it's a busy time. So look, Chair, happy to handle any questions that me or my team will sure answer.
Morris, Alistair, then Peter. Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 49, we talked about an article that was authored by Mark Southern about view of an estuary. Is there a possible to get a link to that so that we can read it?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we can certainly arrange for that. Karen's putting the fingers up. Yeah, absolutely. Thumbs up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alistair.
Yeah, Rob, I'd just like to thank you for your excellent report. It's not in here, obviously, but regarding the invoices and working out what they are made of and what it is. It's great. And my suggestion is that we need to go the next step and use that information and publicise it. Because I no doubt you and Patrick and his team put a lot of effort into that to get it to the position which it's in at the moment. So can we use it?
Look, thank you for your comments on the report. It's a team effort putting this together. And certainly we're doing some work on that in that space, and we'll be talking about it with the wider. Absolutely. Really good point, and we're doing it.
Peter, Jeremy, then South.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Rob, I said on page 53, an application for a suite of consents was lodged by Data Grid New Zealand. The word suite, first, how many consents are being put up? And is this to do with the fresh water take for the centre? If you could sort of clarify a couple of things if you're able.
We've got some experts coming up to talk about this, but yeah, I can at a high level say there's a number of consents that are being applied for, that are in the process of being applied for, and but Bruce and Hayley can perhaps go into a bit more detail on some of them.
Through you, Chair, Lacey unfortunately just stepped out to take a phone call, so I've asked Bruce to answer that.
Bruce.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. There are various elements of the project. The project site itself for the data centre is in between Flora Road East and Taylor Road at Makarewa. It's also proposed to install a data cable coming in through the Reedy Beach area to run to connect to the centre. So we're working through our elements of that process. Southland District Council also have its consenting aspects that we're working through. They're working through, and we're liaising with them. At the moment, Steve, our Principal Consents Officer, is processing the application. He has requested some additional information on a range of matters. We're working through that process at the moment.
We're also, through you, Chair, just to add to that, working in a coordinated fashion with our territorial authority cousins as well to ensure that we're giving integrated regulatory service to Data Grid and this investment in Southland.
So we're fast track application that we're able to respond to, but we're not running the process, are we?
No, through you, Chair, it is not a Fast Track Approvals Act process. They are running a traditional Resource Management Act process. So we are, along with SDC, the regulator in this case.
Peter.
Yeah, I just want to ask, so no, freshwater takes? Like I understood this as, so can I ask that question now? Is that appropriate?
Through Mr. Chairman, yes, that is one of the range of consents that are required. We're just working through that process at the moment. There's been no formal decision made as yet around a processing pathway.
Yep.
Just some further information and clarification around a range of matters. There's been some ongoing dialogue with Data Grid.
Thank you.
Jeremy.
Yeah, Morris asked, answered one of my questions, just not sure it goes around the, I was keen to have a look at that article too. You can see it around the whole council. Just curiosity got me, the education side of things. I was just questioning, we have a school from our neighbours involved in that. Is that a joint thing, or are we often border into with their educating? We've got Waikoikoi there.
This will be a Sam, you
I don't know, just out of interest, I don't know whether it's the right school or.
We do work closely with our neighbours.
Yes.
But Sam, and you are not?
Because we're that kind of people.
He's literally just joined. He may not have heard the question.
Okay.
Sam, are you picking us up?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you just repeat the question, please?
I just see in the students from Te Tapua, Waikoikoi and Dibden School have been working hard to find ways of reduce waste and create positive bits and pieces. But Waikoikoi is actually in the Otago Regional Council area. So I was just asking a question. Is that
We work very closely with Otago Regional Council in terms of the education programme. We recently, for instance, their staff often help us out and vice versa. So yeah, there is an occasional crossover there, just really for convenience, but it kind of works both ways. Enviro Schools as an entity is very much, you know, the Southern is very well connected. So yeah, we do some work with them, and we were delighted that they were able to provide resources for us at our recent 2-day hui up at Blackmount.
all good, Sam.
Just to comment on the CDM review, I think it's timely. We've had a very successful coordinated CCO going for some time, but I think it's timely for some clarity within that organisation. We're also really obviously slightly understaffed at the moment. Having seen reports on Hawke's Bay and other areas in recent times, that's an area the next group of councils actually need to put some focus into. Nobody likes spending extra money, but if you get a disaster and human life's at risk, it must be a priority. It must be a fully integrated service that actually covers the whole area. It's, you know, and it's a big area, and so I just commend that as part of this review that it's an opportunity to actually say what's going well, what could be improved. There's also a wee bit of a staff shortage at the moment. Any further questions or comments on Rob's report?
I'll move the recommendations.
Moved by Neville, seconded by Jeremy. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we will move to 10.3, annual report, page 58. Welcome, Marcus. Would you like to comment on the report? I won't ask you to read it.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Yeah, this paper seeks council resolution to receive the report and sign the annual report for the 24-25 financial year for council. So the full annual report has been up to the Risk and Assurance Committee on the 24th of September, and also the Deloitte auditors have been through the annual report and provided a letter of recommendation outlining the aspects of the annual report that need some awareness from council. Effectively, the organisation achieved 22 of the 34 long-term planning measures this financial year and had a positive financial result. So, if you've got any further questions or commentary, open it up to comments.
Morris.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman, I have one or two questions about the annual plan in general. The first one is in relation to exploring youth engagement. This looks very good, but I wondered what the words "not strategically leveraged" means. And the fourth bullet point on that first page, at page 78. And also, I enjoyed the comment about pizza is not payment. That's very good. People are right to be paid for the work they do. And the third question on this particular page about enviro schools generally, it's most of the enviro schools seem to be smaller schools. Is that true? And if that is so, are there barriers to bigger schools becoming enviro schools?
I just wondered whether, through your chair, whether Sam Ross instead might be best just ask a couple of those, answer some of those questions, and then we can carry on.
Through you, Chair, I think there's a general, generally there is a pretty broad mix. We have larger schools and smaller schools. I think if you balanced it out over the triennium, you'd see that there's equal. Sometimes it is easier to get into smaller schools because they are looking for the extra resources that we can provide. But generally speaking, there are no particular barriers now.
Okay. Thank you. Next one, Mr. Chairman, on the next page. I think it would be useful, I know I've talked about this before, on page 79, you come across the word group there. And in the introduction, under our finances, Southport is mentioned there, but then it doesn't say that this is what the group refers to. I wondered if we could add in after Southport New Zealand Limited in brackets the word group, so that when you go on to the statement of revenue and expenses, you can immediately know this is for people other than us. Immediately know what that refers to. Would that be possible and sensible? Just to add that word in group after Southport Limited, so that you know when you look at it, you see the word group and you think, oh, I wonder what that is. But if you have the brackets after Southport, you'll know that. It's a small point. Possible?
Comment, Marcus?
Yeah, through you, Chair. That sounds like a appropriate change to provide that clarity.
Okay. Thank you. Next one, Mr. Chairman, is on page 105 about the land management, land sustainability work. I note that it's not achieved and only 79% of requests for service were resolved, and this is due part to the lack of resources. So I'm hoping that next year that we can see this as a green and it will be achieved. So I'm asking is what do we need to do to make sure that that is achieved next year?
Through you, Chair, it's probably best answered by Sam, but I can see his camera's disappeared, so.
And also, Chair, I think it's something that we discuss as an exec, how we're going in terms of our performance and monitoring that. So yeah, we'll be shining a light on those measures and just ensuring that we do what we can to achieve.
And through you, Chair, I'd also supplement that there has been some very positive recruitment within the land sustainability team, including the appointment of a new land sustainability manager, Simon Stokes, is very well known to many of you in the farming community, and we're very excited by the knowledge, the energy and drive that he's bringing to this critical team within Environment Southland. So to Rob's point, we're laser-like focused on ensuring that is a green in the next period, because that's where a lot of the really good stuff happens with our communities. Hope that's okay, Sam, as an answer.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you, Amy. I would just say, yes, judge us on the next 6 months.
Thank you. On page 112, Mr. Chairman, there's another not achieved about the flood protection and control works schedule for repair and renewal. I think some people looking at that might be a little bit concerned. I know it's ongoing work and we've got Kanoa funding for that sort of thing. So do we need to be worried about that or not?
Perhaps Lucy might answer, but it looks to me like a timing issue largely. But Lucy may well add to that.
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Wade. Yes, I agree with Rob, the timing issue in terms of us making sure we had the annual inspections undertaken was primarily the reason for the non-achieved score there. It's not to say that work is moving forward, but it's just about how and when that timing lines up for up in the season, which is obviously where we're
All right, thank you. Well, hopefully that will be a green as well. Another one, Mr. Chairman, on page 114 is about greenhouse gas emissions. Once again, this is something we haven't been able to achieve to do all the work that we had hoped to do there. And what we haven't done is develop a program in-house so that we can have targets for our own emissions reductions. We've done emissions assessments a couple of occasions, I think, but this is missing, and I really hope that next year we can have that done. I know we've had a lot of other stuff on with the regional regional climate change group, but this is something that I had hoped we would achieve, but we haven't been able to do it. So,
through you, Chair, just to say that the measures such that they are mean that we had to report that we have not achieved that, but we have progressed you on developing an emissions reduction plan that is at a high level and draft in terms of the range of activities we could undertake to reduce our emissions. We just need to now ensure that those are achievable and proportionate. And now that we're resourced, we're hoping to have that shaped up and that program will be brought back to council in the new triennium, and we can get underway with that. Work continues though still to take steps, whether inside or outside the plan, to improve our carbon footprint. So we've recently gone through the building and installed LED lighting, and we have a new electric vehicle that's coming in to the fleet as well. So continuing to take steps on that journey.
thank you. Perhaps I should let other people ask questions, Mr. Chairman. I do have one or two more, but I don't want to hog the sand.
Further questions? Well, perhaps I'll go next. Thank you for this. Regional councils, or all councils, we're very transparent, and I guess we've argued over the years. Sometimes we set targets that are probably not achievable, and improved it over the years. And a lot of these are now just a timing thing. But we're probably one of the most transparent organisations in the country. We have an annual plan, an annual report. We have LTPs, and just on the finance side, I think we've done very well when you break down the surplus. The bulk of it is actually either unrealised gains from our investments. It's been extra funding that we've received from government or the cruise ship industry. So the actual surplus, which is just under 400,000, is actually pretty tight. And the fact we did budget for a deficit for the year, and mainly due to perhaps a few staff replacements. We've actually we've finished the year in a positive note, which I think is always good, and it sets the council up well for the next season. Peter?
Yeah, just thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just responding to one of Morris's questions there, and a wider question around our partnership with government with the Kanoa flood works that are going to be happening around the province. We've got the Winton project, the Dipton Winton project, and probably my question is directed to Sam. Are we going to deploy a communications program around the significant works that will be ongoing for some time? I've got a community board out of Winton that are very keen to hear what we want to do when we're ready to present some information. Could we have some structure around a comms plan that's ongoing and sustained around? So I just don't want to see people ringing me up and saying, why is there trucks and figures in the river? What are they doing? I would like to preempt that. So what's your thoughts?
Through you, Chair, yes, we have a strategic comms plan around that work, which I'm happy to share with the councillor.
Thank you.
Further questions? Lyndall?
Thanks, Chairman. Just bringing it kind of back to the broader conversation about the annual report. It's difficult for us to set targets that are measurable and not front load them with being achievable, if you know what I mean. And in my 9 years now, we've adjusted the way those targets, what they are and how they're measured. So I'm wondering how and when you might, I'm sure there have been some things to learn from this report, as there usually is. So I'm interested in when the new council might see some of that kind of feedback about realistic targets. And I know that auditors have a go at it and all that stuff as well. So there's all of that picture. Just wondering when and how we might see some of that feedback. She said, hopefully.
Through you, Chairman. So effectively, at this stage, we're unable to change these targets until this, we go through a new long-term plan process. Certainly, as part of that process, we'll be looking at what do the targets look like? Do the targets look like outputs in terms of how many compliance visits do we do per year, or those sorts of things, or do we try and look at more outcomes based? So what value does those visits bring to ensuring compliance and shifting us into the space where we want to be? So there's always going to be that tension through that long-term plan process, and as you say, it will be audited and checked and out for community consultation to make sure that the measures and the accountability piece is right. And there's also, if we achieved every part of our annual report, then maybe we would be setting the results too low. So there's always, I guess, that what can we achieve, and a bit of a stretch there. So try and find that real sweet spot. But there's always an opportunity there to keep attention on it.
Couldn't said it better than myself. We're always striving to ensure we have a continuous improvement culture, and so absolutely as part of the process when we come to turn to the long-term plan, the lessons learned out of this by staff and any insights and lessons that our governors have also similarly observed throughout the 3 years of previous annual plans will be folded into that, along with the guidance, advice and requirements of the auditors as well. Love a good stretch target.
Morris, I'm assuming you've still got a few questions.
I have two more, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your patience. The first one relates to a graph on page 187, which is about debt control benchmarks. And I have to say, I don't really understand it. It looks to me that our debt has increased massively in the past 2 years. But and I do understand that some of that's to do with Kanoa work on flood prediction. Could somebody just explain that and tell me that it's not something to worry about too much?
We'll ask Patrick, I think, to.
It's a graph on that page, and then there's another graph on the next page which shows a similar thing.
Quite a bit of it about the facilities we've got in place and actually haven't had to download, but Patrick.
Sorry, I'm just catching up on the chart.
I see we've got a reinforcement in place.
It's going to be my answer.
Yeah.
So I'm on the same boat a little bit, making sure that I'm on the same page. It was the debt control benchmark.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And around the increased movement in that.
Yes.
Yes. So also the overall, yes, it has increased, and it's because in the LTP we did plan for the debt borrowings around all the Kānoa works. At that time of the LTP, we didn't actually have any confirmed Kānoa funding. Since then, we did receive that. So that's why we're so much better than what we had anticipated in terms of our debt, because we were able to gain that funding that we weren't expecting until Q4. So it sort of throws it out and starts to look far better, but actually it's because we received it.
So it's not something that we should worry about. It's all part of the planned process. I think somebody from the community says, what are you doing with all this debt now?
Yeah, it's because actually we managed to reduce the debt levels, and it's because we actually got that funding. So therefore, our anticipated debt level, which we would remember, we were anticipating going to the annual plan of I think it was around 13.1 million, but then we reduced that down to the 7 million drawdown, and so all of that is reflected in how much better we're appearing on paper, just by the measurement itself.
Thank you. And the last one, Mr. Chairman, relates to the audit report, which was interesting. The auditors, this is on page 204, for those of you that are following me. May not be many at this stage. I thought it was interesting that the auditors wanted us to add a sentence or a phrase in paragraph 4 of the chairman's message, Chairman Chief Executive message. And the phrase they wanted us to add is about the business over Rule 24 in our plan, and Section 70 of the RMA, which, if you recall, was about farms having to get a resource consent to continue to farm. And it's sort of explained in what we have proposed. That this issue is dealt with elsewhere in the plan, and I assume that relates to our farm planning requirements. The auditors asked that we should add, it would have added significant cost to farmers for no environmental benefit. But they wanted it would have added a significant cost to farmers. And I just wonder, I know this was brought up at the Risk and Assurance Committee, and I was online and I missed it, so I apologise for that. But it seems a bit unusual for them to say that we should add that in when actually I don't think that it would have. Well, relatively speaking, the farmers have got to get a farm environment plan. That will be a cost to them, but getting a resource consent, if it was structured properly, might not have cost anything more than that. I know this is a bit of a technical question, but I just wondered why the auditors would want to put that in. They're not here to answer the question, and maybe there's no answer to it here today, but I do think it's a little bit strange.
I think it was in relation to the changes we'd get. If we hadn't had the government changes to Section 70, everybody would have had to have a resource consent as well. But it's an interesting point they've picked up on, because it's the financial. Well, I suppose it would certainly have financial implications for the council if we suddenly had to have 4,000 consents in terms of staff. But we've possibly got somebody sitting in the audience that can actually answer that.
Cost to farmers rather than to the council.
We'll go with Alistair in the meantime.
It's quite simple, really. Just having a farm plan is not going to change the water quality at all, because you only put a plan out there and you're audited on it in a 3 to 5 year thing. The time when we're going to get a change in water quality is when plan change to Ōtahi comes in. And then we get some reduction in the actual numbers of animals, I guess, if that's the way it ends up, then we'll get some change in our water quality. So let's not beat about the bush. The farm plans, and I heard them advertised on the radio yesterday, are no use by themselves. They've got to have other things joined with them to make it useful. And there's no mention of that in here, and there was no mention of that on the radio yesterday.
With respect, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's the point at all. The point is, why did the auditors want to add that phrase to our annual report? And I appreciate, I might have missed a boat, and maybe it's not that important, but I don't want to have things in there that are not necessarily right.
So I'm trying to think who was there, because you were online and perhaps didn't pick it all up, but
well, Mr. Chairman, I don't want
the
to.
auditors gave us reasons why they wanted the changes. It seemed to be an interesting change, but we agreed to do it at the time. So.
Okay, no, I can leave it at that.
Peter.
Yeah, I just want to challenge what you said, Alistair. You said farm plans, am I right? You said sufficient on their own. So can I ask you a question? Do you think when people plan, they're more aware and they're more efficient in the work that they do when they plan things? Is that
But yes, but
of
that's
an
not gonna-
advantage?
It's not going to have the
I'll let
significance.
Alistair answer,
Sorry.
then we'll move on. I think we're getting off track here. Okay.
No, I think it was quite a statement that Alistair made, so I just want to.
But that's not going to change significantly the nutrients going into the water. And Mr. Rodway, Councillor Rodway, has said on several occasions that we've got to reduce our numbers. And I think the science is saying that, although take a review at times, but that's okay.
I think we'll move on. Somebody prepared. Well, actually, I'll move from the chair that we the annual report and the actual.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Okay, with that, we received the report. Record that councillors have read and understood the representation contained in the letter of representation. Request that the chairman and the chief executive sign the annual statements and associated documents, and pursuant of section 98 of the Local Government Act, adopt the annual report 2024-25 and the annual report summary 2024-25. I've moved it. Do we have a second?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Morris. Any further discussion? I will put the motion. All in favour of recommendation, all in favour say aye. Aye. Against no, carried. Okay. We will now move to 10.4, options to pursue modifications to the proposed South and Northern Land Plan on page 208. Okay, the floor is yours, Hayley.
Sure, thank you very much. I will hand over to staff just by way of introduction. For those of you who fulsomely read the recent Amendment Act to the RMA, which I know you all did and dream about it frequently, the government introduced some new handy tools to allow us to start to remove some barriers to positive action in Southland. So we have taken up the challenge and the pathway and prepared a proposal to you. This is based on feedback that we have received from quite a wide range of community actors, including farmers, including catchment groups, including our own Thriving Southland, around the benefits, both environmental and economic, of wetlands, including new constructed wetlands, enhanced wetlands, and that there are some challenges with our water and land plan with regards to consenting requirements. So we have been very busy looking at whether that pathway provides opportunity to removing some of those barriers through a consenting process to support an increase in these important environmental and economic initiatives within Southland. So I will hand over to the team to talk you through it.
Thank you. So the scope of the modifications that we've been looking at, following on from the previous meeting, is to clarify the rules relating to wetland restoration, introducing one rule as a one-stop shop for land-based wetland construction, and enabling the damming of water and sediment traps outside of water bodies and detention bunds, and enabling the treatment of land drainage water from subsurface drainage when it's discharged. So today we're asking for a decision based on that scope set out. We had appended drafting to show an indication of what the drafting might look like, but because we're still going through a process of testing, refining, checking that drafting, we are asking for a decision based on the scope today. Since the item went into the agenda, our focus has been on sense checking the scope as a whole, including the expected uptake, but we can show there have been a few changes that have been made to the drafting since, so we're able to get that up on the screen today.
Through you, Chair, I just want to add, this has been quite a fast process. We like to be quick about things in Southland and use innovation when it's presented to us. So, ideally, we would like to be coming to you today with that completed drafting. We believe that there's a definite advantage as being first, or at least in the first few of the queue, up to the Ministry for the Environment to make sure that if you make the decision today for us to go forward with this, that we can unlock this important activity to a much greater degree.
No, thanks for the work staff have had to put in a fairly short time frame to get to where we are today. And when you read through the red ink and the track changes, this is pretty exciting. I mean, this was a key, the establishment of wetland was a key recommendation of the regional forum, and there's been frustration out there with the lack of clarity, the potential costs were the resource consents, and actually just about all the parties will agree this is a really good thing to happen. So I think that we'll get reasonable support. So while I won't see it through to fruition, I'm very hopeful we will actually approve this today and actually allow the Minister to do something that will allow reasonably quickly positive action to be happening on the ground. So well done.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I agree, Mr. Chairman. This is very good and very well done for staff. It appears to remove the problem of building a wetland where it might have an adverse effect on existing native vegetation, and that enables us to happen, provided it's not too excessive, and then there's a discharge from the wetland too. So that's addressed, and hopefully that will get over all the problems that we've raised. So congratulations, very well done. It looks really good.
Linda.
Thanks, yes, same. I did actually go through it with a fine tooth comb because it's quite fascinating. What have I become? But it's still not easy, right? There are a lot of conditions, and it's I'll be really interested in a kind of a sense check with somebody who might actually be in the midst of such an activity, because as a person who's not putting in a wetland in their backyard, I have one naturally. It's important that we get a hands-on work through the system and work through the consents and how workable are they. So, and I'll be interested to see your changes actually, because there are a couple of words that I thought, well, how do you actually define what that word is when somebody, what is minimum? How do you measure minimum? I'll reserve any further comments until after we've seen what you've changed. But good job, and I hope it works.
Another good point is even permitted activities do have guidelines, and I think it's something that's often lost by the public, but if we can make this clearer and encourage people to get on and do it and not spend months and money on paperwork that we don't need, that's a fantastic step forward.
Chair, I just want to say that this doesn't, to your point, Councillor Ludlow, overcome all of the consenting barriers. There is still a challenge with the national level regulations, but the government is committed to looking at that and removing that kind of barrier as well to positive action with wetlands and would be really encouraged to participate in that, to support this. We are also going to be working alongside people who are involved in trying to work these regulations as well to, as you say, sense check them to make sure that they achieve the intended effect as well. We've had conversations with Thriving Southland and Richard Kite there about this, and we also have partners that we are working with and supporting through our land sustainability team on this wetland work. So we have an opportunity to test this with them following any decision that you make today. We do, genuinely, whilst this does look complicated, we want to make it much, much easier. Accompanying this is also another hold work program as well. This isn't obviously the only thing we're doing. We have introduced a streamlined consenting form, new enhanced guidance that makes things much more simple to get your head around, and that will, if we're successful here, be aligned with the drafting that's up on the screen and the earlier version in your pack as well. And we're also exploring other avenues as well, including the potential for global consenting, to make sure that we're doing absolutely everything, which is what you've asked of me, to ensure that we get the right wetlands in the right place.
Jeremy.
Yeah, just in regards to Lyndall's comment, I spend a fair bit of time on this, and I'm always looking for the right catches and the words and things, because often, okay, when we're all moved on to a better place or whatever, the interpretation of that to the next person, and because it's got to be constant and understanding, and it certainly clarifies a lot of that stuff, and it's guiding what and trying to make it a permitted activity. So I think there are conditions. I sort of felt comfortable thinking we're heading in the right direction. That's I can say that, so I'm sort of happy to see it. But it is always wary when you're putting rules and that. It's the interpretation when we aren't here. The next, that's very clear. That's what we've got to make sure we do. All right.
Any further comments?
Happy to move that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Seconded by Morris, seconded by Jeremy. All in favour, we'll say aye.
Aye.
Against no, carried. Well done, guys.
We haven't actually gone through the, sorry, Chairman, but we haven't actually gone through the changes at the start, maybe.
Can I talk you through it?
Well, I can catch up with you later, maybe, seeing as it's already been moved in.
Yeah.
I know, but I'll check.
Okay, we will move to 10.5, annual compliance monitoring report. Would you like to comment on the report?
Pretty sure I'll just actually say this is it's been a challenging year, but I think that we've had some incredible results. A lot of hard work across all of Environment Southland and out in our communities with respect to compliance, but also to our resource management team who are out there in all weathers, responding to incidents, monitoring consents, and doing the hard marking. I'll hand over to them.
Good afternoon, through you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present the compliance monitoring report for the financial year 2024-25. Again, it has been a year of highs and lows for the resource management team. We saw some lows around some activities which have had environmental impacts, which have led to prosecutions and a number of ongoing investigations. But over and above that, we've seen a number of highs with a lot of improved practices and a lot of improvements in some of our steady work programs, such as abstraction record. We've seen a decrease in over abstraction in those areas and a steady increase in our winter grazing practices. Today, I've got a couple of the team leaders with me to help answer questions, but I'm going to hand over to them now. They can introduce themselves and have a couple of highlights from the area before we open for questions.
All right. Hi. G'day. I'm Kieran. I'm the team leader for the resource management technical team. My team do all the monitoring for significant industries, all the TLAs, and trawl through all the abstraction records and just thought I'd just say that there's a huge amount of work goes into going through all the data submissions and all the sample reports and all the analysis that comes in for those consents. It's quite a lot of work, and so I just thank the team for all that hard work. So yeah, that's what I'd like to say on the matter. Yeah, there's a lot of work goes into that.
My name's Brad, I'm the team leader for the monitoring team. Our team is primarily responsible for consent monitoring within the agricultural sector, with a strong focus on dairy-related work programs. But in addition to this, we oversee a range of minor industries like gravel extraction, gravel wash, clean fills, truck washes, and coastal structures. Just a couple of notes on air workloads. The reporting period falls in the middle of a couple of air work programs. One being winter pair consent inspections and the other being a winter grazing monitoring program, so this can skew the results somewhat. The same applies for the synthetic nitrogen reporting. The data reflected in this report is for the 2024 reporting year due to the reporting deadline outside of that report period.
Thanks for this. I don't think every council does this report, and I've always been very proud of the fact that we do it. It's transparent. You can see what's happening across a whole range of industries, and you can also, people can pick up this and see that we do have an education first approach in most cases, but it does give a guideline on where we are going. And looking at some of the red that for ICC, but I see an awful lot of construction going on out there, so hopefully that colour will change in the next couple of years. But no, a great report, and it's showing improvement overall. Eric,
I'm not sure if this fits more in the policy one, which comes next or not. When I look at your forestry statement on page 233, there's no mention of wilding conifers, which is something that comes up at almost every meeting we have here. I'm not sure whose job it is to actually cast an eye over what's happening and whether there are any rules, because some of the worst offenders, like planting of Douglas fir, will still continue at pace in a lot of our catchment. And you know, I think that environmentally, the impact of what's happening throughout the South Island, and we're part of that, is immense. Now, it is in the policy paper in the fine print on page 287, 3.4, but I think it needs to be a little bit more prominent as to.
Probably jump forward on to the next.
Well, I just wonder why it.
This is report for our rules.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't fit with us.
Right.
Already got the thought though for the next item.
Right. I'm aware that it's in both, but it's so important. I'd like to see it everywhere.
I can respond to that through you, Chair. So forestry is an organisational wide work program, so a lot of it works within my and any potential breaches or issues in that are referred to our team. So we've been able to look at potential non-compliances for both of the work programs themselves.
Right.
Oh, yes, just, Mr. Chairman, I note the dairy inspections, there's been a slight increase in the moderate non-compliance from the past 2 years. Is that something to worry about, and can we do something about that? That's not just paperwork, is it? That's moderate non-compliance is something that might have the potential to cause a problem, not just not filling in the field.
Through you, Chair, it can be an escalation relating to paperwork as well, where they haven't addressed it since it was previously identified. Not in all cases, sometimes it can be some moderate bonding. We address directly with the consent holder.
So, am I right to say that it's not something we should worry about too much?
We address these issues as we identify them.
Okay.
Through you, Chair, at this point in time, we don't think that there's a trend emerging that we should be concerned about, but as Brad said, it's something that we do keep an eye on and we address it as and when we come across those moderate non-compliances through the consent holder.
Okay, thank you. I wonder when we do the monitoring for winter grazing, I know we look at things like stormwater runoff and dairy effluent application 2 runoff from those, but do we look at the build-up, if any, of nitrate in the groundwater underneath dairy farms, particularly winter grazed blocks, that might be causing a problem. We've heard about this recently with in Gore and in Canterbury. They issued a nitrate emergency. In Southland, there's certainly not immune from that. So I wonder how are we looking at that, how that is building up, and are we doing anything about it?
Through Chair, I'm not aware of any of the resource consents for winter grazing having groundwater monitoring requirements. Obviously, we've got 200 odd effluent consent holders, effluent discharge consents that have groundwater monitoring associated with them. So there is some monitoring of obviously dairy effluent discharge, but not winter grazing as far as directly on the groundwater.
Well, that'll be something for the future, maybe, because I know that it is an issue. Okay. As Nicola mentioned at ICC, but also the two big industries in Southland have got a fair few reds. And one is the Alliance Mataura plant, and the other is this year, I think, Fonterra. Yeah. Fonterra got a couple of reds there too. Would you comment on those and tell us whether we should be concerned about that?
Both of those industries, they had some spills which resulted in effluent or sludge ending up in fresh water. So, and both of those events had infringements issued as a result of them. There are some other less serious non-compliances in those particular industries, but those are the main issues that resulted in that grading, I suppose.
So are they working to improve that so that they don't get any reds?
Yeah, they would be, yeah.
Yes, through you, Chair, I was going to add, noting in the commentary, we have good, positive and open relationships with those parties and have been very impressed by the speed of their response, the way in which they engage with us on that. So we're very encouraged by that and how they are working to ensure that those types of incidents do not occur.
Self-reported rather than discovered by Environment Southland, which is a really good indication.
Both of those things are
Lyndall and Alistair.
Thanks, Chairman. Just really quickly, really like the format of the report. Actually, it's easy to read, and I particularly like the consent performance summaries, because getting that trend of how things are changing for us as governors, having an overview was really helpful. And obviously, we like them all to be turning green, and some of them are, which is fantastic, and really easy for us to see that information. So thanks for that, and keep up the good work.
Alistair.
Yeah, we constantly get thrown at us that the local authorities are waterways at different times, but we never see it reported. So how do they get away with it?
Sorry.
Through devious means?
No, so they report. So, for instance, the wastewater overflows into the stormwater for the ICC there. All of those, they report all of those to us. We also notify them on our website and all through all our normal communications means. So they go out to the public.
Will they get prosecuted for it? Or
there's no prosecutions, no.
And this is where industry says, well, okay, we're getting prosecuted, what's going on?
They have been prosecuted. They have been in the past, Council.
They have been in the
Yes,
past.
it's
happening more often, seemingly.
Not sure about that, but they certainly, we've got a consistent approach to these things, and I'm sure the regulatory team will reinforce that. We can look through that at some stage, maybe in the future, but we've got a consistent approach, really important.
And within the stormwater case, you've got a lot of historical infrastructure there that at a certain level will overflow, and they do need to fix it, but it's understood you can't do it all overnight. So Jeremy, then Peter.
Just a technical question. I see the truck carrying the DAF sludge from Fonterra's wastewater treatment plant. Does that reflect on Fonterra even though it's a contract? Like I'm just overall just a technicality. It's obviously been reported by Fonterra, but from a point of saying, is that Fonterra's problem, or is it, well, the contractor got the infringement notice, but just in reflection of how we look at it.
I guess that's something that the investigators try to work out, whether or not what the liability is of each individual cases. I can't remember the exact details of that particular one, but yeah, when we go through that investigation process, we try to work out that who has responsibility on it in that case.
Yeah. Okay.
Peter.
Yeah, thanks very much. This is not a technical question, but just really appreciate Hayley bringing your team up to the front here. Our biggest questions that I get as a councillor is really to see compliance and consent overall. So this really helps coming up. I think one of the biggest challenges is to be honest with what we do as a council. You guys are where the rubber meets the road and the hard lines, and we should embrace that, not hide it away in the building and say, okay, sometimes we have to do this and sometimes we have to do that. And this sort of tones, this is what we do, this is our function. So I just want to appreciate you coming up and doing this. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further.
I'll move the recommendation, Chairman, with thanks to staff for producing such a clear report.
It is a really good one. Moved by Neville, seconded by Alistair. All in favour will say aye. Aye. 10.6 policy summaries. Okay, like to comment on the report?
Through you, Chair, this is the result of a huge amount of work by your good selves and also by staff in terms of synthesising our existing plans, policies, strategies, all of which have been agreed and adopted by your good selves, into a topic-based structure, which primarily will support our induction to the incoming council. And for those of you who are here in the next triennium, no doubt a reminder, but also they will have a range of other purposes that we'll be able to use this good work to as well to ensure we are clear, consistent and transparent in working with our communities on a range of important topics that really matter to Southland.
Just adding to that, for you, Chairman. These have been workshopped with councillors a couple of times, and I guess through that process, what we've identified is there's a little bit of a gap, I guess, from our existing policies and I guess the desired position of where our policies should be in our future. So just highlighting some of those aspects, so some of those things that came up through those workshops may not actually be reflected in the summaries because there's a bit of a mismatch of where we are versus where councillors want us to be, and those processes will continue in our future. Like the comment Councillor Roy made a few moments ago about the biosecurity piece with Wilding Pines, our policy needs to match up to our desires in that space. We do some more work. So happy for any questions.
Yeah, can I continue? Yeah, I raised it under monitoring because clearly here it is, it's fine principle, but it's only words unless we're actually making it stick. And my question is, what have we got to do now to ensure that some of the behaviour that's going on ceases and that someone's actually measuring it, that there's some kind of system where the misuse isn't happening?
I'm sorry, Chair, would you mind repeating the question, Councillor Lloyd? I had to step up for a moment.
Yeah,
I might have missed the one
that's
that you-
fine. Well, my question is, we're all concerned about Wilding Conifers, and there's a lot of activity going on, particularly with Douglas firs and to some extent larches, which and are leaking out all over the South Island. We've got a responsibility here. So whose job is it? Like, this is our policy, but we don't have a role in policing it, do we? And if we do, how do we do that? That's why I raised it under the monitoring, because I wasn't sure who's actually the policeman, police person, to stop errant behaviour about planting the wrong tree in the wrong place.
Thank you for repeating. Through you, Chair. So, yes, police person is the appropriate thing there because it's me and my team. So, yes, we do a bit of policing in terms of what gets planted and how and where and when it spans over. The trickiness is the confluence of our policy direction and the rule setting isn't just ours to own. So, we work really closely with Marcus and Hayley's team, obviously, and a lot of work to be done in the policy changing. That combined with some rules that don't always help us at the district councils. So, it's kind of a multi-headed beast. There does need to be more work done in the next triennium about the level of effort and where you want us to put it moving forward. So our pest plant team, Jolie Hussey, who leads our pest plant team, very heavily involved in this work programme, both here in Southland but across the regions as well. And looking at Rob, because Rob's got some skin in this game too, but it's it's a bit of a blend. So take it seriously, but we need to figure out how we can report more to the Brooklyn organization.
Thank you. Well, Peter Ellis, then was our Peter. First.
Yeah, it's nearly impossible at the moment because I approached Jolie and also Lucy earlier in the year to try and get something done. And really 10 centimetres outside the boundary fence, nobody's responsible for it. And those things travel for a hell of a lot further. And I don't know where you're up to with looking at that sort of thing.
Yes, so through you, Chair, the good neighbour rules that exist within both our regional pest management plan and help us to work with the likes of DOC and the foresters, they're not particularly teethy. And we need to come back to council and ask for direction in terms of how teethy do you want us to be making the rules, both the ones that we own and also the ones that the Southland District has, and how can we work together better moving forward for both enforcement but also just operationally too.
And through your chair, just following on from Lucy, there is a policy gap here. And that was to clear that up pest plant because it's got a huge commercial value as well. So there's a whole of this conversations going on at the national level about how should we deal with this. It's not just a regulatory matter, it's also how do we get enough investment into the whole program to maintain the gains we've made and to increase progress. So it's not, I don't think it's simply a matter of let's get the rules right. There's a whole package of stuff here. We're certainly advocating for a national plan for this. You know, it does need a national approach to the scale of this. We're pretty clear that wild ponds are the biggest threat we've got to our implicit grasslands and our high country biodiversity. Don't need to tell you that, they're so invasive. So yeah, not a simple answer, but it'd be fair to say, as Lucy talks about, we're putting a big focus on this next triennium and also about working nationally as well. This needs to go up the priority list in terms of the national central government's approach to this. And that plan, I think, that national plan is the only way we're going to make progress. At the moment, Southland District and perhaps you have some increased perspective on this. They, see new plantings, and so I think we've tightened up on that in the last couple of years, but there's still some gaps. There's still some planting going on. I think we talked about. So, yeah, Mark, do you want to comment?
Chairman, so effectively, generally, plantings are enabled through the National Environmental Standard for commercial forestry. That is the consistency across the whole country of enabling plants to go on the ground. So that is the primary regulation. There's a very narrow scope for regional control or regulatory involvement at a local level. So that is the driver, and we've certainly been advocating best we can through those channels when amendments been made to have more localism and local determination around the appropriateness of where those plantings are. It's inherently a problem with the Resource Management Act in the sense that it tries to internalise the effects of an activity within the boundaries, and therefore using that as a tool to manage a wilding problem is not really the right tool for the problem. So it's an inherent problem. The Parliamentary Commission for the Environment's all over it with a lot of our concerns up around Molesworth at the moment, and particularly down here as well. So they got significant interest in the previous council committee meeting report that Jody put forward to council. So they're certainly aware of it, and we're certainly lobbying best we can at a central level. There's work to do, focus internally with our policies as well.
And central government is saying they totally agree, this is a big priority, but there's a lack of action, is what we're saying, so we're going to push a bit hard.
So I've got Peter, myself, Lyndall, and Morris.
I just think for the presentation we had in Jolly came and made it very clear. There's a definite change here. We're talking about a new lot of commercial plantings of Douglas firs recently. The historical species in northern Southern was put up there, dare I say it, by the catchment board some years ago. Yes, that was right, that was us, made those decisions. But so having some really good progress on this, but the Douglas fir plantings, it's a whole new wave of that. I don't know for that. So we need to, those policy blockages between the two councils, we need to find a way through that pretty quick, and I think that should be the focus of the next council.
It certainly needs central government oversight. They'll be pushing it. We need a consistent approach across the Tussock Grass, the South Island, Central and North Island. Because what happens in Otago affects us, so we've got to make sure it is consistent. The early plantings were actually by the Ministry of Works, Sorcon Division. They used to have planting schemes. They used to have training schemes, staying in that little house you might see up there, and as you go over the saddle, and then go up the hill and plant Contorta and all the other species that grew really well to stop erosion. The catching boards certainly helped out. So, and this is across the country. There was either government departments, the old FRI, Forest Research Institute, and some catching boards. So
for good reason, that road and the railway line were up there too, weren't they?
Yeah. So it's a credit legacy. Unfortunately, not a.
We've got a new environment now with the Douglas fir, which are planted by commercial entities for profit.
And every year that we delay the work, there's a 30% increase in the costs of dealing with it. So if you look at Mid-Dome, it was about a $3 million job back in early 2000s. Richard Bowman used to talk about. Now it's many times that, as we know.
You're either going forward or you're going backwards. There's no steady state. Thank you.
Quickly, we're not going to solve this problem today. I probably got myself into trouble, Rob, when they brought out the NES, and I had an article saying it was too weak. Well, it was too weak, and so that's one of the issues you've got. So the ability to control pest management, fire risk, there's a whole raft of stuff, and it's going to have to be a coordinated approach. I think a national policy. Andrew Hoggard understands it, that money is short at the moment. They're aware of it. We're starting to run into time constraints, but I've got Lyndall.
Thanks, Jim. Just really quickly, I was going to say something about AI, and then I realised that actually what I mean is actual intelligence, which is clearly what we have here in the building. I'm astounded that there are 18 policy summaries and an introductory document that are so comprehensive and inclusive of the councillors' governance thoughts more than once. And actually the introductory document to me is, front and centre for the new council. That's actually how we are and what we do. And I just wanted to say thank you for your actual intelligence, all of you, and your outstanding work, because that's a huge piece of undertaking, and it looks pretty good to me. Thank you very much.
Are you on that list too, Alice? Have you looked?
I've got about 6 words, and they're not going to be pleasant.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm a little bit concerned about this, I have to say. I see that what we are proposing to do is adopt the policy summaries, but I don't think we can do that. I've got a number of questions that we haven't got time for today about some of these, about water quality, water quantity, about biodiversity, there's nothing in there about rivers, for example. We've got a good policy there on wetlands, but nothing on rivers. We should have something on rivers. They're such an important part of our environment. So I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, that we change the third recommendation here, say that we note the policy summaries and recommend that the council consider these in more depth in the new triennium. I wouldn't be able to vote for us adopting these at this stage, so I'm asking that we, 1, 2 is fine, but number 3, I would ask you to consider that we change the word adopt to note and add and recommend that the council consider these in more depth in the new triennium. I note we have a regional policy statement that is active that covers all of these things, maybe not exactly the same headings, but it does cover all of these things. And, you know, we haven't really had, I know we've had input into these things in workshops and things, but so I'd like to.
Probably a reasonable recommendation. I'll take Alistair, then you can perhaps move your amendment. I am Phil.
Well, I want to say we've spent 15 minutes here shooting hot air. We've gone nowhere on wilding pines or wilding trees. How do we draw that to a conclusion? Because it's got to stop, because it's increasing as time goes along. I'm looking at you, Rob.
Well, I think it's one of the things we'll talk about with the new council. I'm not going to put it off. This thing we can't come to a conclusion today, but we can certainly come back and let you know where things are at and get your endorsement for the approach we're taking.
We've got to have steps towards getting a conclusion.
And part of that's going to be around getting that investment, government investment at scale. We need another about $15 million, we think, for an annual program. And that's putting aside the regulatory challenges around Douglas Fir, but so we'll come back to you on that one. Yeah, thank you.
Phil.
Thank you. I'm not so sure I agree with Morris's suggestion about changing the recommendations here, because my understanding is these are summaries of existing policies. So these provide an accessible, concise framing of what is inherent in the detailed policies statements. They reflect the current, not the aspiration for the future. If there's something missing, that reflects a gap that might guide council's consideration in the future. If we need a policy statement that pertains specifically to rivers, for example, then that's something we can attend to, but it's not there right at the moment. I mean, this is, my understanding is the intention is to, here is a current stock take of where we're at with the current summer policies. So I think I'm entirely comfortable with the recommendations as proposed here, and just wanted to emphasise that position.
Same.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may respond to that. Look at page 300, where it talks about freshwater quality, and it says under paragraph 2.5, the first bullet point, elevated nitrogen, phosphorus sediment and fecal contamination associated with intensive pastoral farming and urban activities. Now, that is not true, because crop farming and growing grains, things also adds to all of those things, particularly nitrogen. And we have a nitrogen hotspot around Balfour that was not caused by pastoral farming, it was caused by crop growing. So that's just one thing. There's a few other things there that I think, you know, that need a bit of a closer look at, and that's why I think we should note them. And I'm happy to move that, and maybe people don't agree with me, but I'm happy to move that the recommendation with those changes. So the 1 is okay, 2 is okay, and 3 be changed to note and recommend that the council consider these in more depth in the new triennium. You have to work that into the rest of the wording, but that's the important part. So I'm happy to move that, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. We have a seconder. Seconded by Alistair. I'm sort of hearing around the room that the other compromise would be actually adopt, but revisit on the new triennium, which would possibly satisfy both sides. But look, we've got a motion on the floor. For and against. Lyndall.
Yeah, I just these are working documents, so I don't have any problem adopting them per se. I know they're not perfect, And, but to me, they're a living document, and so, I don't have any problem, and I entirely agree with Councillor Morrison that they're, summaries of where we are at the moment. Yes, there are some things missing. But we traversed that when we started the workshop process, so I would be voting against your change.
Any further comment? Otherwise, I will put the amendment. All in favour of the amendment, raise your hand. Against? The amendment is lost. Somebody like to move the original recommendation? Moved by Phil, seconded by Lyndall. I'll put the motion. All in favour will say aye or raise their hands. That is carried. Thank you. Now we're running into a bit of a time.
Against.
I'll vote against.
Okay, well, let's record the againsts. So there's 2 there. Can we stop for a lunch break? I've got to go on that. Look, we might, what's the next one? We'll do one more. We'll stop recording. Okay, we'll do. 10.7 is new estuary information request. That's 319.
Sorry.
Welcome.
So the item was in response to a question from council. The question being about wastewater treatment plant and new River Street.
Any key points you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, certainly can. So the question was more around the effect of the wastewater treatment plant on chemical seeing in New River Street. So this is based on a report that came to council earlier on, which was 24, and summarises that information. So as in the item, there's it depends on how you calculate, as always. There's 2 ways to calculate. One is a broad way, where you basically just, it's almost how much goes in, what does that look like? Or you can do a more nuanced approach, which is looking at a hydrodynamic model, thinking about what water goes where within the estuary, and you end up with 2 different answers effectively, which I've included in both. So the simple approach gives you a number around the sort of 3 to 8% contribution in the wastewater treatment plant. But if you do a more hydrodynamic model type of approach, you end up with a number more in the region of 30%, around 30% in some particular areas where we're seeing seaweed issues.
It was I wanted to see the full report earlier, so I think there's certainly some interest in this. Any further questions at this stage? Morris.
Well, just a comment, Mr. Chairman, this is a very good report. It summarises the situation there really well, and got some really good data in there about what contributes to the problems. I would note that the estuary discharge is probably at the south end of the Reti Beach rather than the east end, because the Reti Beach is north-south. But other than that, I'd be happy to move the recommendation.
Recommendation's been moved. Alistair, you want to comment?
Just through you, Mr. Chair. Where do you feel it's at? Because you're the scientist. Is it 30% or is it 3 to 8%? No, sorry.
We're speaking uncertainty. Through you, Chair. It really depends on what you're trying to manage, I think. And so it comes back to the beginning question. So if you're trying to manage the algae itself in particular, there needs to be more of a focus on those areas where you're seeing the algae. So taking that approach, then the wastewater treatment plant is definitely a large contributor, but not the only one, of course. Yeah. So it's hard to know what the true number is, but it's going to be somewhere in between, somewhere around those numbers. Either way, if you hypothetically didn't have that discharge in the estuary, you've still going to be other aspects of that load that need to be considered from a management point of view.
The recommendations have been moved by Morris. Do we have a second?
Oh.
Second by Neville, speaking for the bunch. Are you wanting to comment or?
Yeah, just one question, just a general question, if that's okay. So that wastewater plant, does that take any other outside contaminants and treated contaminants from it?
Through you, Chair, my understanding with the wastewater treatment plant is they obviously take the wastewater from Invercargill wastewater systems, which is residential.
Yeah.
But there is some trade, what you might call trade waste inputs. An obvious one is, as I understand it, South Pacific meats that goes into that system to be treated. And there is some emergency provisions for some other trade waste to go in there. And I don't know how often that's exercised.
So that's transported waste from South Pacific meats?
I think they actually have a piped, so they actually have a before it goes through piped directly to the wastewater treatment plant, they actually have a treatment system themselves. So there is a pre-treatment before it goes straight in. So it's not necessarily raw, well, it's not raw waste from that process. They have a coarse treatment, and I think they have a dissolved air flotation system, which gets rid of the fats and so on, and then they actually have a sort of digested type system as well.
So no other transported materials to the
other than that.
Under normal operations, maybe.
Not right, no.
Okay, thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded.
Just to put on that point, Mr. Chairman, the compliance monitoring report said that there's some material delivered from the regional landfill to the wastewater site. I don't know how regular that is. But.
Yeah, I think that's one of the emergency provisions, as I understand it. Would have to defer to compliance for accuracy. That in emergency kind of provision and their consent, I don't believe it is to transport that leachate into the.
So it's not a regular basis.
Not that, I think it's an emergency.
I'll put the motion, all in favour, will say, recommendation, all in favour, will say aye. Aye. And I think we better break now for lunch. I'll put it on this thing. If you want a half an hour break for lunch, Jeremy, you can probably won't be back. You can continue.
All good.
All good. So we will now break quick lunch and.
Are you gonna log out, Jan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a different rate. It's a lower rate.
Okay, you're back on the stream.
Are we all good?
Optimise it.
Okay, well, I'll bring the meeting back to order. Alistair?
Yeah, good on.
Yep, all good. Chair's gone out, so I'll just look after things till he turns up again. We move on and my thing's gonna go flat. We can go on to this 10.8, Southport, New Zealand annual meeting proxy appointment. Are you leading that, Rob, or who's? Rob?
I wonder if Amy would like to lead this one. Do you want to lead this one, Amy, the Southport, or is that your? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a machinery of council item. Basically, Southport are having its annual general meeting on the 29th of October, which is one day after our inaugural meeting. And typically we send name representatives along, but because of the timing of the meeting and the notifications, we're unable to actually put names on the voting form. So we are asking council to make an appointment as its proxy. It's got a couple of choices there. I'm just trying to find those. Either the chief executive can be the named proxy, because, and there'll be a paper just shortly after this one, the chief executive holds delegations till the new council is appointed, or to appoint a non-returning councillor that is a member of the investment committee and has been a member of the Southport subcommittee as its proxy, or the alternative proxy on behalf of council, or to appoint the independent chair of the investment committee as proxy. So those are your choices.
I think Chair, understand that the chair is not available that day. I haven't had that in writing. I've just heard that. Is that you understand?
That's correct. I do know that.
Oh, can I talk?
Yes.
Well, I don't think we've got an option here because the investment committee is Jeremy Morrison. Morrison and I don't know if we're coming back. So that means that we need to, and I don't have a problem with this, but nominate Jeremy as the nominated spokesperson. And our other option after that is to delay till the next council meeting, which is the day before, or to appoint the chief executive as the proxy if the other one doesn't go. We don't really have an option. So I'll move that.
I'll second that.
If I can just add, just regards, and I just asked Jan, that I think on the 28th, we will have a meeting
At
around.
the inaugural meeting, there'll be an item going up to council and it will have the agenda for the Southport meeting, and council will be able to provide its proxy with directions on how it wants to vote on the items. We're still awaiting the formal notice of meeting with the agenda items.
So,
and on that, I said, I just asked, I said, whoever's chair, the proxy's there just to vote for what the council.
Yeah.
If whoever's new chair, the chair could speak on behalf of that. There could be two different, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be the proxy to speak. Is that correct? Like,
I always made a speech when I did it, but never mind.
But I mean, if you
Couldn't
wanted
help
the chair,
myself.
the new chair could speak on behalf of the shareholding if need be.
Well,
if need be.
Well,
It doesn't have to be the proxy.
yeah, I see. Should we, Jen, do we have to move 3 now? Can we wait till the 28th to do?
No, you
No.
can't wait till the 28th.
Gotta be
because
put in.
the formal notice has to go into the company that supports this meeting about 14 days
Righto.
before.
Yeah, I will be there.
So, yeah, well, as long as you don't get sick or something. So I my motion then is Jeremy as the named proxy and the backup is Rob. That's what I've moved.
Is the alternative.
Okay, I'll put that. Sorry.
Second.
Okay. Oh, you gotta.
Said 3 seconds.
Okay, I'll put that to the council in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right. Yep. Welcome, Linda.
Apologies.
No worries. We'll move on to 10.9, register for approval of the Environment South submission to the Local Government Commission draft code of conduct. We've been through this and done, and this is who's
through you, Chair, just to actually note the report is read, and this is actually a retrospective approval of your submission to the Local Government Commission on the draft Code of Conduct. We workshopped with the Council on the 17th of September, and you gave direction to broadly actually support the draft code, recognising its potential to enhance transparency and consistency in local government, with the exception of the expression that we actually had reservations about proposed public complaints process. So the submission is actually attached, and we're just seeking your retrospective approval of that submission.
Just wondering if you've got a feel for how our colleagues across the region have felt about the code.
I believe that ICC have actually supported it as well, but that's the only one that I know about.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We're all through. Yep. Else, we didn't hear. Moved it. Okay.
Already workshopped.
Yeah.
Quite extensively.
All good. I'll put that. And all in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Again. Carried. Move on to end of training interim delegations. Yes.
Through you again, Chair, just to take the report as read, and for Council, in accordance with Schedule 7, Clause 32.1 of the Local Government Act, to delegate the power to make decisions in the interim election period, which is between the declaration of the final results to the period that the new council is elected or sworn their declarations, and recommend that we delegate to the Chief Executive the powers to make decisions through that period. And the third recommendation is also to approve that the Chairman, current Chairman and Chief Executive will review and sign the minutes of this meeting as a true and correct record pursuant to the Standing Orders of 28.4.
Question?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yep. Eric. And then
So look, if my memory serves me correctly, this is a form motion that we've done every triennium. There's no departure from what we've done any other year, is there? No. So I'm happy to move it.
I had a question. It may not be relevant, but the civil defence position is usually, well, nominally filled by the chair or somebody appointed by the council. So if there's a gap there, that's for a regional declaration rather than a local one. Do we have to make a decision about that? I'm talking, there's levels of declaration. One is a regional one, which only there that we can make. Locals, other governments, Southern District can't do that.
Yeah. But that would be with Rob.
Hang on, guys.
Holding of the delegation for council, would it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chrissy, what's?
Yeah, my understanding of the legislative handover between is that Rob, as the acting chief executive for the regional council, will hold that delegation in the interim, should we need to be making a.
So our chief executive can do that. That's fine.
So would it be useful to add this to the paper, or do we need to? If we don't need to, we don't need to.
This would have been the same as last.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to. Does this cover all that? That's.
And effectively in the recommendation, it actually states the delegations that the laws don't allow you to do. So it's actually saying what you can't do versus what you can do. So I think the recommendation's fine as it stands.
Okay. Just want to think we'll carry on.
I'll second the recommendation.
Okay, we've got a secondary. We'll put that and all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against. Pass the right to you.
Excuse me, Jan, can you get me into the screen? Thank you.
Right, so we're up to 10.11.
Yep.
Reporting of expenditure above delegated authority. Fairly straightforward. What is
Machinery is just a machinery of council item, reporting on herbicide spend. Take that item as read.
I'll move that. Good to see.
Moved by Jeremy, seconded by Alistair. Any discussion? Motion, all in favour, say aye. Aye. Against, no carry. Right, 10.12. councillors' diary updates for October. Any additions?
334.
There's a whole pile of meetings which have been listed on the schedule for the incoming council. They will move and shift as required to fit the needs. The leave of absence is listed at the top, have previously been dealt with, so unless there's any other approvals required. Standard item this month.
So do we circulate this to potential councillors, or do we wait until?
The important dates have been provided to those people standing.
I just wonder, until we form the new council, is it worth worrying about the Tuesday meeting or Tuesday teams thing?
Those caucus type things that are just in there, that they can be kept, you wouldn't have anything, I wouldn't think in there, so they'll just be standard, and so half the time we can leave them.
Yeah. I was ready last night to go on.
I'll move that, Chairman.
Moved by Lyndall, seconded by Phil. All in favour say aye. Aye. That's right. That will take us through to Common Seal. Moved and seconded. All in favour say aye. Aye. Get rid of that seal. Okay, item 12 is public excluded.
You need to deal with your item of extraordinary.
Oh, that's right, we did. We have a extraordinary business.
The public item, just one box on the front page, dealing with the adoption of committee resolutions for the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting of the 12th of June, the Finance and Performance Committee meeting of the 11th of June, the Regulatory Committee meeting of the 19th of June, Regulatory Committee meeting of the 23rd of July, Regional Services Committee of the 13th of August, and Regulatory Committee meeting of the 13th of August. All the public parts of those meetings, but you will need to deal with each item individually.
You move.
Okay. So first up is Risk and Assurance Committee meeting of the 12th, moved by Jeremy, seconded by Phil. All in favour say aye. Aye. The Finance and Performance Committee meeting of the 11th of June. Moved by Morris, seconded by Phil. All in favour say aye. Aye. The Regulatory Committee meeting of the 19th of June. Moved by Neville. Seconded by Jeremy. All in favour say aye. Aye. And the Regulatory Committee meeting of the 23rd of July, 2025.
Can't remember whether I was there or Jeremy.
I'll move it. I think it's on.
Jeremy, I was there, I was second. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
The Regional Services Committee meeting of the 13th of August.
And I'll move that.
I'll second. Seconded by Eric. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
And the Regulatory Committee meeting of the 13th of August 2025.
I'll move that again, I think. It's cheaper.
Moved by Jeremy.
Anyone?
Alice,
Anyone second that?
Yeah, well, no, you. I was just scratching.
Alice.
Oh, no. That's all right.
All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Right. Now we can. Now Jan will give us the reasons for going to.
We've still got risk and insurance.
First.
We've done all that.
Yeah.
It's like papers.
We're going to move into public excluded business to deal with confirmation of public excluded minutes of the 17th of September for council, adoption of public excluded resolutions of the Chief Executive's Review Committee and of the Risk and Assurance Committee on the 24th of September, to deal with long-term accommodation update and the Chief Executive's recruitment provider process, as well as potential modifications to the Southland Water and Land Plan relating to gravel, and to deal with the supplementary report you earlier added to the agenda dealing with adoption of committee resolutions for the public excluded sessions of the meetings that have been circulated. The reasons are all set out on page 340 of the council agenda.
Having heard the reasons, would somebody like to move? We move into public excluded, moved by Alistair, seconded by Neville. All in favour, say aye. So first up will be the confirmation of minutes, public excluded minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 17th of September on page 4.